Mauri ora, sister. Kia ora. Karanga te rā, karanga te pō. Karanga atu ki te iwa o Matariki. Huringa, huringa, huringa. Ko te mea tuatahi. Ka nui te mihi ki ngā mana whenua o te takiwā nei. Kai te mihi, kai te mihi, kai te mihi. Tēnā koutou. Tuarua, ngā mihi mahana ki a koutou e huhui mai nei I tēnei rā. Tēnā rā koutou. Ko waio hau. Nā toi kai rākau, te whenua, nā tūoi pōti, ka mana me te rangatiratana. Ko Tania Pouwhare tōku ingoa. And I'd first like to start by just acknowledging the stellar lineup that we've had today. What an incredible achievement to get so many whetū into one space in one day. What a really fantastic achievement. I work in the Social Innovation Unit at Auckland Council. Our job is to demonstrate that a just, inclusive, circular and regenerative economy is possible. Our job is to disrupt the status quo. We want Tāmaki Makauro's prosperity. It is, of course, the place of many lovers, equitably shared with the people of South and West Auckland. We want to show that the status quo is not the only choice that is available to us. Now, these are all fine words, but they mean nothing if they're not practically translated into tangible action at the grassroots, action that makes a material difference to the lives of people who have borne the brunt of the extractive economy. So I want to share a little bit, and it is only a fraction of the cool stuff that we're doing. I'd like to touch on two fundamentals of the economy, labour and capital, but in the context of building a new economy. An economy whose purpose is to enhance the mana and to serve our natural world and ordinary people. Everyone needs to earn a livelihood. Most of us do that by being employed by others. We're committed to quality employment that enables people and their whānau to live with dignity. And in fact, we have a very specific definition of and set of measures on what quality needs to look like. We utterly reject the platitude that any job is a good job. Poor jobs keep poor people poor, and that's a fact. We train, manaaki and place people into employment through our Māori and Pasifika trades training and youth connections programs. We use the council family's significant demand-side muscle, our procurement power in the market, which Yvette talked about this morning. She talked about social procurement. And the public sector is a major part of the market, the amount of money that we spend. Using our procurement power in the market to specify the terms and conditions of workers we place in council family contracts. This includes things like the occupations, general labouring, casual labouring, out. Starting on a living wage, minimum wage, and certainly not the training rate or starting out rate, out. And accelerated career progression into higher skilled, higher paid roles, because we know that that's what insulates our people from economic downturn. All of the economic recovery bailouts should be conditional on creating decent jobs. The billion-dollar eco-jobs program must be deployed on the premise of quality and dignity. These jobs must be fit for the future, and what I mean by that are jobs where nature meets the fourth industrial revolution. Our people in those jobs must be the designers and the innovators of the new technology to restore and regenerate and protect our natural world. For example, planting by drone, designing the next technology to restore our waterways and so on, incorporating mātauranga Māori to restore Māori. We cannot go back to the work schemes of the 80s and the 90s of manual labour that didn't make Māori and Pasifika peoples any more resilient. Low-skilled jobs is precisely what makes us vulnerable in economic shocks. We need to anticipate the next economic downturn now. We cannot afford to think small, low and incremental. But wealth is what really matters. and we define wealth in the broadest of terms. It's not just about being financially okay so that you can weather emergencies like COVID-19. It's about agency, being able to design your own life and live life on your own terms. Don't get me wrong, financial wealth matters for obvious reasons. We all got to put kai on the table and pay rent, etc. But also because this is what we can transmit down through generations. We are again using our power in the market to create equity. Our big bet, our flagship project, is called He Waka Eke Noa. He Waka Eke Noa connects buyers and clients like Auckland Council and Kāinga Ora and Link Alliance and a number of other big public sector bodies and initiatives to Māori and Pasifika-owned businesses. This is what is called supplier diversity. Our team are the New Zealand experts in this. In the last 9 months, more than $44 million worth of work has been awarded to Māori and Pasifika businesses who are part of our movement, and that opportunity would not have happened if we didn't intentionally and deliberately create it to do so. But even more amazing, half of that was awarded during lockdown. Our businesses and the force field that we were able to create have saved and created hundreds and hundreds of jobs as a result. What we've done has provided some stability to Māori and Pasifika businesses in a time of economic shock, and therefore stability for whānau and ainga because their workforces are overwhelmingly Māori and Pasifika. We know that these are the whānau who are, in times of economic downturn, are particularly vulnerable, and it has also proven to be the most effective tool that we had in our public sector, our local government arsenal, for creating a protective factor for the Māori and Pasifika economies in Auckland. To be clear, this is about levelling the playing field and improving procurement processes so that Māori and Pasifika businesses get a fair go. They still have to win the tender on their own merits, which is just to correct some of the misinformation that's been out in the media in the last week. This is not about handouts or quotas or entitlements. And what we've shown is that when we make our processes more accessible, fairer for smaller businesses, they excel. I also want to be clear that this is not just a tool for greater diversity efficacy between supply and demand. He Waka Eke Noa is not about replicating the same dead-eyed capitalism but with a brown face. This is a movement that was born out of the civil rights movement for economic justice, inclusion and equity. And we honour our brothers and sisters in America and that whakapapa. The values that drive us are mana motuhake, manaaki, tautua, service and working as a collective for a greater good and a different kind of way of doing business. And it's not just our personal or whānau or household wealth that matters. We need to democratise capital and diversify its distribution. We need alternative models of ownership, and we will be investing in this, such as worker-owned and other forms of cooperatives. One of the issues that was exposed during lockdown was digital access. 1 in 5 households in Māngere, Otahuhu, Otara and Papatoetoe do not have internet access despite the fibre running right outside their door. Cost is the major factor. Digital access must be considered a basic right in this day and age. But we can't just think of the usual tactics, for example, subsidising the telcos. What if a cooperative of residents or young people or lone parenting mums, who, by the way, have the lowest net value of any family type, owned that digital infrastructure? If you think this sounds far-fetched, it's already been done by a group of First Nations tribes in Ontario, Canada. They had to do it because neither the state nor the market would. They are now the largest Indigenous-owned telco in the world, called KNET, and they did this from the poorest, most remote communities that you could imagine. But we can't stop there. Imagine hyper-local, cooperatively owned food supply chains, clean energy and water, basic rights in the control of those at the pointiest end of the economy, ordinary people with a real stake in the economy rather than just passive consumers or labourers in it or victims of it. Finally, I would just like to shine a light on the urban diaspora. West and South Auckland, and South Auckland in particular, have been experiencing a slow burn economic disaster for decades, but it is now threatening to turn into an uncontrollable wildfire. We already know that Māori and Pasifika fare worst for longest in economic downturns, and South and West Auckland are staring down the barrel of 50,000 unemployed people, 40,000 of whom are post-COVID. For perspective, those 40,000 people is equivalent to more than the entire population of Whakatane, or 33 Tiwai Point smelter closures. 41% of Māori and Pasifika projected unemployment is already or is at risk of becoming structural, entrenched. 38% are young people. If this plays out, it will engulf the South and exacerbate deep pockets of inequality in the West. The risk of unemployment scarring is significant. Whilst projections should always be taken with a grain of salt, we should be prepared for some kind of heady mix of impacts seen from in the eras of Rogernomics, Euthanasia, the Employment Contract Act, where Māori incomes decreased by 9% pretty much overnight, and the GFC. All of those together is what we should be prepared for, and it would be irresponsible not to. We have been warned of Māori job losses in Auckland being 34%, more than double that of the next highest region of Canterbury at 15%, and more than triple that of Wellington at 10%, with all the other areas being in single digits, mostly low. Yet there is no sign of an intentional, tailored economic recovery plan for the single largest concentrations of Māori and Pasifika peoples in the country. In fact, recovery funds that we would have benefited from have deliberately excluded urban centres like us, such as the Investment Fund for Māori and Pasifika businesses to create jobs, when we've already shown we've got form in that area, or are completely inadequate to the scale of our challenge, such as the Youth Employment Fund earmarked for South and West Auckland. It is utterly unacceptable to red zone almost a quarter of all Māori and 64% of all Pasifika peoples in this country. We need a South and West Auckland growth fund, like the surge regions have had, that will invest in the future with relentless aspiration for Māori and Pasifika peoples. And it needs to be a green New Deal. We want a circular economy. We need investment into high-tech advanced manufacturing. We want a food and beverage sector that is leading the future of plant-based and cellular meat production, and which disrupts the food insecurity and food deserts so prevalent in our communities. We urgently need to lift the status and pay of the care economy. Investing in the creative economy is inherently low carbon, and it is good for our souls. And this is the crucial bit, we need to do this in a way where the benefits accrue overwhelmingly to local people rather than leaking out of our communities, because that is the story of South Auckland. We can do this. A new economy is possible. And as Kevin channelled Jeanette this morning, I'm going to channel Native American economist Rebecca Adamson, who says we need an economy of enoughness. Everyone should have enough. No less, and this is the interesting point that I really like, no more than what you need. But we need a brave and audacious leadership at all levels to back this. We can't go back to the previous economy. Whilst the future scenarios seem untenable and really frightening, so was the pre-COVID economy in which South and West Aucklanders were living in. We need a new economic model that will weave strong social fabric, protect our planetary life system and enable us to lead. Kua takato te manuka. The challenge has been laid down. We're not waiting, we've accepted the wero, and we're just getting on with it. But as local government, we need our partners in central government to do their fair share of the heavy lifting too. Finally, I would like to leave you with these words from Helen Todd, American suffragist, creator of low-cost housing, avid workers' rights advocate, birth control campaigner, from her speech at the Lawrence textile strikes in 1912 in Massachusetts, USA. Her words are as relevant today as they were more than 100 years ago. Life's bread, which is home, shelter and security, and the roses of life, music, education, nature and books, shall be the heritage of every child that is born in the country, in the government of which she has a voice. I hurirua toa tia te ao, anei te ao hou. Me pana ki tātou e runga i te aroha me te manaaki o tētahi ki tētahi. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou.
Kia ora.